Chrysty Esperanza, delighted to have you with us today. So you lead legal, regulatory, public policy and communications, compliance and security operations across Block, a long-time leader of Block's legal team. You previously held positions at Electronic Arts Inc. and you served as Deputy Attorney General at the California Department of Justice, and you were an associate at Frella, Braun and Martel. So tell us a little bit about your own time at Block, and maybe introduce us a little bit to Block as well for those of our viewers and readers who may not be too familiar with you.
Sure. Well, Anne, thank you for having me here. It's really lovely to be here. I've been at Block for almost a decade now. It's been 10 years, which is a long time in tech years. When I started, I think I was the 7th or 8th attorney on the team, much smaller pre-IPO before then. And over the last few years, as you've said, the company has really grown and changed. And I've led a number of different teams on the legal team, and then also our trust and safety team, which is our physical security team. And then more recently now, I lead the counsel team, which are the teams that you mentioned, comprised of legal, compliance, corporate affairs, which is comms and policy, and then trust and safety. It's been a really fun journey because the company has been through so much, constantly growing and changing, just meeting the evolving needs of our customers.
And then tell us a little bit more, as I say, about Block itself and the kind of products.
So Block's a technology company with a focus on financial services. We have different business units. There's 5 primary business units. The one that you're probably most familiar with is Square, and that is an ecosystem of tools for sellers to help them start, run, and grow their business. Cash App is our second business unit. This is a business unit that's really looking at redefining how we look at money, making it more accessible, more relatable, more available, targeting individual consumers and also businesses as well. We recently acquired Tidal, which was known as a streaming service, but we acquired it because we see artists as entrepreneurs. So this allows musicians and fans to be able to engage with each other, and we're really focused on building artist tools. The next business unit is called TBD, which is to be decentralized. And this is more of like looking forward. We don't have any products in the market yet, but it's looking at a more decentralized future, which gives ownership and accountability to people to be able to take control of their identity, of their data, of their finances. And then finally, we have Spiral, which both builds and funds open source projects for developers to help move Bitcoin into a tool that's more accessible.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about TBD. That's really interesting because we're very interested kind of in the future of everything. So that's kind of the direction you're hoping to go. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
TBD is building a suite of tools primarily focused on decentralized finance and decentralized identity. It uses the blockchain technology to build open source, and all of this is built out in the public for free, so people can build upon the different code and tools that are being developed. And the purpose of TBD is to help people really acquire that ownership, whether it's their own identity, whether it's over their finances, or over data. And so looking for those partnerships and those opportunities to really bring that technology out to become more accessible.
Very good. And I mean, you touch on it there, and that whole area of financial inclusion and accessibility is a big deal, I think, for Block. Am I right?
When I joined what was then Square, years ago, the purpose was not economic empowerment, but it was around democratizing commerce, making commerce easy so that sellers could really focus on their craft, on their products, on their services. And today, Block's mission is economic empowerment, which is not far from that, but it's more than just a CSR statement or a message. It's really at the heart of many of the things that we do. In 2020, Block announced that we would invest $100 million in social impact funds, and $10 million of that has been allocated to international funding and lending, and that money is still, being used and being allocated. In the UK, there's one in particular I wanted to highlight, a $2 million investment, or £2 million investment in art business loans. This is an organization in Birmingham, and they really focus on helping underserved communities, businesses that are led by minority communities that don't have access to these funds and are able to get some access through banking, but this provides that supplementary access.
I think it's a very exciting time with players like yourselves because I see it myself, that democratization and that ability for very small craftspeople or, people even selling. We were talking about at farmers markets. I just love to see that kind of that freedom that's coming with it, the unbanked, even small businesses. It's a fairly obvious question in a way, but I presume the pandemic must have hugely accelerated that, when we were going cash-free, that kind of move towards a cash-free society and therefore using products like your own. I presume, again, you'll tell me now, but I assume it accelerated your market hugely. And has that acceleration slowed down or has it remained or are we moving back a bit towards cash?
So I think cash continues to be an important part of how people pay. And at Block, especially during the pandemic, we're always looking for ways to make sure that we're reading signals in the economy, but also listening to the needs of our customers and of our sellers. And at Square in particular, the philosophy has always been we want to empower our sellers to be able to accept payment in any way that their customers would like, whether that's cash or card, so that they never miss a sale. One of the starting anecdotes of the company was one of our founders, Jim McKelvey, wasn't able to sell a piece of his artwork, his glass sculpture, because he wasn't able to accept cards, and that was part of the impetus for creating the initial piece of hardware that in software, which is now was the dongle, as expanded to much more. But in the pandemic in particular, there was this time where normally we would come up with these multi-year product roadmaps for each of our business units. And then at Square in particular, that changed overnight. We saw these fundamental changes in the economy. And so the team did this sprint to be able to change that product roadmap, to listen to customers' needs, and to build a suite of tools that would help them at that particular time. You were talking about a cashless society, and these were things such as curbside collection or moving to online, which was something that many brick and mortar businesses were not able or equipped to do. And so making that more accessible to them so that they could again focus on their craft and on their products. And so so we want to make sure that sellers are able to use cash if they want to. Some choose to, some may not, and we'll just continue to listen to the needs of our customers and build for them and their customers.
Yeah. So do you see cash sticking around for a while?
I think it may still stick around for a while. I think for some communities it's still a very important tool, so we want to be able to enable both cash and also cards. And then we spoke a little bit about Bitcoin as well. We constantly think about alternative ways for payment and money movement. Bitcoin is something we see as a real tool of economic empowerment. It's something that can potentially be the native currency of the internet. In the same way that we saw the internet democratize access to information, Bitcoin may democratize the ability to transact across the globe. And so we're really thinking of it as a way of a more inclusive future for those communities that may not have those opportunities, and something that we'll continue looking for, reading those signals and building for.
The evolving regulatory environment, I suppose we're getting onto the challenges for fintech companies of all kind and digital payments. Tell me a little bit about that environment and how challenging it is and what's changing and what's moving.
Yeah, so we try to think of regulations as really something that we should embrace. It provides stability and predictability for businesses, and then on the consumer side, it provides protection and those best standards for protection. We are in a very highly regulated space, and being an international company across multiple international jurisdictions. So something that we're very cognizant of that can be fragmented and can be evolving, but something we keep a really close eye on. And we try to see the opportunity behind it. So for us, we have the opportunity to learn from some of the world-class regulators. In the US, it's the SEC. Here in Ireland, the CBI. In the UK, it's the FCA. In Australia, ASIC. And we try to really take what we can from those regulators and then use that to build and model our best practices across the globe.
The future challenges around compliance and security, how do you keep whether it's consumers or merchants or business, how do you keep them safe?
Yeah, I mean, talk about evolving. For us, trust and safety has always been at the heart of what we do. We want to make sure, I mean, as a financial services company and a tech company, trust is always going to be top of mind. We want to make sure that we're keeping the information safe and that consumers feel comfortable that we're keeping their money and their finances safe. So we build data protection really into every facet of our payments platform. We're ISO certified, which is the world recognized standard on security. And we make sure that from an executive perspective, that management is very well versed in information security, and we build this into our processes and our policies and our controls, our risk management systems and our resources.
And how challenging is the environment? Are you seeing it changing?
I think it's always changing because different bad actors have, they're always developing new ways. And so we need to make sure that we stay on top of that, and we use our technology to design and deploy different software tools to make sure that we're modeling to detect and mitigate and avoid that type of behavior.
You may have answered this to some extent, but are we ultimately headed towards a cash-free world was one of my questions. And, how do products like Block's products, ensure that transition or manage that transition?
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think cash is going to continue to be an important part, and we really just want to provide that optionality to our sellers. And through Bitcoin, I think we can expand that option by being more inclusive and thinking about how we can reach a wider demographic and people who may not have those type of opportunities. If it accelerates toward a cashless society, we'll look for those alternative ways that people are able to pay, whether it's peer-to-peer through Cash App, or it's through our sellers being able to accept from customers, and continuing to develop that technology through each of the business units, whether it's through Square for our sellers, Cash App through customers, or TBD for everyone, or Tidal for emerging musicians and artists. That's something that we'll continue focusing on.
Can I ask you to tell me a little bit more about Tidal? It's very interesting, that kind of move towards the artists. It's funny that it started back with one of the co-founders. Jack Dorsey, of course, is the other co-founder, and he's Piece of Art. Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, Jack, I think, is also an artist and has a love and affinity for art and creativity. He's a very creative person, creative thinking, and so I think that's one of the things that gravitated him toward Tidal, and the company toward Tidal, because it was this really unique opportunity. Tidal, I think, was built on the premise of wanting to be more artist and musician forward than other streaming services. And so using that opportunity to build artist tools and to see artists as entrepreneurs, to help them manage their businesses, their growing fan base, in a way that we wanted to for sellers, so that they could also focus on their music and on their craft. And we've talked a lot about economic empowerment and moving things forward. There really isn't a company out there that does that right now, so it is it's a new and emerging space. We have programs like Tidal Rising, which is designed and targeted toward more up-and-coming musicians, giving them education and access about financial acumen, about tools, helping them connect with each other. It's kind of a similar premise that we have for sellers. In the seller space, just this past July, we launched a program called Seller Community Peer-to-Peer, and it targets and helps match more experienced entrepreneurs with those who are up-and-coming. In the Tidal Rising context, we're doing the same thing, where we're helping to connect artists and also give them tools and a community to help them run and grow their own business, their own space. So it's a lot of the same patterns and ethos through the different business units.
So interesting. I'll be watching that space with interest, I must say. Your own personal vision for the future of finance, I suppose people have always been at the mercy of the big banks, for many, many years, and it's changing so much. But what would your own vision for the future be?
I think the vision for the future, even though there's, you mentioned a number of challenges around information security and around regulatory challenges, but we really feel like the future is really bright here. And the mission of the company, economic empowerment, is part of everything we do. We want more people to be able to participate so that anyone, anywhere can participate in the economy with as few barriers to entry as possible. Our products are really aimed at providing more access, more choice, fewer barriers. And we've talked about a number of the different products, but this could be an individual in the global south that sees Bitcoin as a safe and stable way to transfer and store wealth. It could be an emerging musician in Dublin who's just getting started and looking for a way to grow their fan base, and they want to interact with their fans and grow that. It could be a coffee shop or a baker in Cork trying to set up their point of sale system but doesn't know how to do that yet and can learn from the community and learn from the education and tools. For us, it's really about making sure that we can continue to increase that inclusion and provide ways for people to participate in the economy. So it sounds like a simple vision, but it's a very, it's a big one, and one we'll continue to work toward.
Wonderful to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for answering those questions around Block and the future of finance.
Thank you, Anne. It was lovely to be here.